Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 55 of the Primetime Rundown interview series powered by StreamYard right here on the Eastern Observer, I-95 Sports Network, and Zingo Television, channel 198. We can't thank all of you enough for tuning in and making us a part of your Monday evening. That being said, we are very excited to have with us the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Syracuse University, Olivia Coiro. Liv, thank you for taking some time with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We're very, very happy to have you and look forward to our conversation this evening. But first, as a reminder to everyone watching or listening tonight, feel free to join the conversation at any time. Drop in a question in the comment box, and we will be happy to get to it during the duration of the evening. And also don't forget that tonight's interview is available for download in the iOS and Google Play stores, or you can subscribe to the Primetime Rundown. We are now available on Spotify and iHeartRadio, or you can visit YouTube, search I-95 Sports Network, and find us that way. All right, Liv, let's get it started here. We start these interviews really the same way as we've done with everybody, but we're just past the year mark now of the start of COVID-19, the shutdown for sport across the sports world. So for you, how have these last 12 or so months been for you on a personal, how are you combating the pandemic? And on top of that, Division I sports came back a lot earlier than Division II and Division III. So you've been going again since September. So how has this all been going for you?
It's kind of crazy to think that it's already been over a year since the world kind of stopped, I guess. There's been a lot of highs, there's been a lot of lows, but I just keep reminding myself as we go, like it's not going to last forever. So that's kind of how it's been. Just trying to take every day as it comes, especially with the way the sports world has been this year and when competition's happening, when it wasn't happening, when it started and you were trying to just navigate things, You think back to like when the pandemic first started and you're like, oh my God, I was washing my hands every single time I touched a single surface. I was using hand sanitizer like crazy. And now you think about it, and you're like, okay, I'm more practical with the things I was doing. It's kind of the same with like sports games. I remember some of our first events on campus, there was like 6 different ways to get a temperature check before you came into the facility to like come to work. And now it's a little bit more lax because we're all kind of navigating our way through how it's been.
You remember when you used to go to the grocery store and you couldn't find baby wipes and you couldn't find hand sanitizer. And now 12 plus months past the start of the pandemic, we can find all those things now. But one of your responsibilities at Syracuse is you're the contact for the women's basketball team. And you just recently returned from the bubble experience at the NCAA Division I women's basketball tournament in San Antonio. So you've actually been in your 4 years at Syracuse, you've been to the NCAA tournament with the women's basketball program 3 of those times. You hosted it at the Dome in 2019. But what was that experience specifically? Just because this is the first time we've ever experienced what playing in a bubble is like, constant testing, and second a team loses, you're getting shipped on a plane and getting sent home. So what was that experience at the bubble like for you?
Yeah, honestly, we had a pretty good experience in the bubble. It was a lot different than some other teams, and we were very fortunate for that. But just the experience of not really knowing what it was going to be like, you had to pack planning that you would be gone for 3.5 weeks. You get there and it's a clean slate for everyone in the postseason. And so just trying to pack your whole, like everything you need to do for work and living out of a hotel for that long into one suitcase, maybe a duffel bag, and on short notice because, selection Monday and some teams were leaving like Tuesday, Wednesday. We left Wednesday. We had an extra day, but it was really difficult. And then just like not knowing what it was going to be like when you got down there, like you had to quarantine and get tested before you could even go to practice or have like film as a team or anything like that. So it was really interesting. I remember like the night before we left, I was freaking out. I was having such bad anxiety about going to the bubble. Like, I don't know what I thought it was going to be. And I remember the first night there, we had like a group FaceTime kind of going on with a couple other SIDs that were down in the bubble. We just kind of all started adding people to the call. And it was fun. We were talking and after that, like we would see each other on the street walking to testing every day. And we'd be like, hey, what's up? Good luck tomorrow. It was like a really cool opportunity to see like a lot of camaraderie in the sport, having it in one location. But at the same time, there was a lot of things that needed to be brought to light with the women's basketball tournament while we're there. And I think that this year's tournament kind of just opened the eyes of a lot of people. And then the people who have seen the way that there's inequality in sport are kind of just like, well, yeah, I've been talking about this, and that's kind of my stance on it, is like, I've never been afraid to shy away from saying when I didn't think things were fair. So it was interesting. It was cool to be a part of it.
No, we're going to get to that at one point, but I want to start in your early beginnings because you're originally from where I'm from. We actually, your parents and me, we live in the same town. We're both from Massapequa on the South Shore of Long Island. So I always ask this to my fellow SIDs that I've interviewed so far and say that for us, we don't work in sports because it was just an avenue to go down. That we work in sports because we truly love it, and it starts somewhere. And for me, I know for me, it started for me as a child. It started for me as a kid, and I think it starts, at least for those of us like you that are also from New York. Growing up in a city that is just so surrounded by its sports market here in New York. But what grew your drive to work in the sports field?
Growing up, I used to play a lot of backyard sports with my cousins, and they laugh all the time now that I have a career in sports because I was like the most unathletic girly girl in the world, but I just wanted to be a part of something and to be playing with them. And so I'd go out there and I'd do all these like ballet moves in the outfields, playing backyard baseball at my aunt's house. And it's just like very funny to my family that I work in sports and I've established this career here. But that's kind of just what my childhood was like. I liked being a part of something. I loved watching sports. I loved the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And I think it's so interesting, just the way that athletes' minds work and how they operate, and working with athletes and seeing people achieve their dreams and being a small, tiny part of that was something that I loved. And that's kind of still what I love to do. So I didn't know it then, but it worked out for me. I kind of always liked being part of something and winning. Oh my gosh, I'm so competitive. So that was kind of like what my childhood was like.
So when you sat down with your family to play a board game, if you lost, the board game ended up against the wall or something like that?
I wouldn't say that I have like a crazy temper, but I definitely get mad. I'm kind of a sore loser. I get really moody. I'm not like mean about it, but I get moody. I still am. But yeah, like I do not like to lose in Monopoly. I have to win when I play Uno. It gets really aggressive. I just recently learned how to play Yahtzee. Some of our players taught me how to play Yahtzee this season, and I hate losing. So yeah, I'm pretty competitive.
So when you're rolling those dice, you're going for the large straight. If you don't, where do those dice end up?
I've thrown them maybe like 2 or 3 times. But that's a beginner, right? Like 2 or 3 times, you just learn.
Mm-hmm. Liv, I know that you're a lifelong Yankees fan as well as a Jets fan, Islanders fan. But I'm curious, did you get, I know you lost your dad at a very young age due to cancer. So did you get your love of your sports teams from him?
I don't really know. I kind of grew up watching the Yankees because my cousins watched the Yankees and my uncle was a big Yankee fan. That's kind of how I got into them. I don't really remember my dad like watching sports or being a big fan of anything. And I know he was, but like I was so young when he passed. I was only 5. So I remember him being a sports fan. I remember him watching like football with my uncles on Christmas and Thanksgiving, but I don't really remember like major details of him being a fan. But he was a Yankee fan. So he was a guy from the Bronx. So I inherit that from him for sure. But yeah, my mom's a huge Jets fan. My mom's whole side of the family. My grandma has season tickets. My grandpa has season tickets. Like when they got divorced, that was one of the things that they split in the divorce. 2 tickets each. It's crazy, but like that's so my family if you know them. So they're big Jet fans. So that's where I kind of grew up as a Jets fan and stuff. So I wouldn't say it was entirely because of my dad's choice. Like my mom played an influence on it too, but really just my close family that I grew up around.
When you decided to go to college, you attended a small Division III school in the suburban Boston area at LaSalle. You went there and you majored in sports management. And for most people, when you choose sports management as your field of study, it almost instantly translates into a career working in college athletics. We see a lot of people end up going back for their master's in our business, end up getting their MBA with a concentration in sports management. But at 18 years old, what made you choose sports management? Is that to be your field of study?
I actually didn't choose it to be my field of study. I know, it's weird. I started out as an athletic training major and I could not pass anatomy. I have a really bad anatomy. I could not like study for anatomy, like what bone and ligaments are and where they're connected. It was not for me. So I made it through like a semester and a fraction of being an athletic training major. I like killed the baby in first aid. It was really bad. Like I wasn't passing. And so I switched my major to sports management because I had worked in the athletic department. And so my boss was the SID actually, and she oversaw the student workers in the athletic department. And she was like, you should just switch to sports management. That's what I was. And I was like, okay. So I did.
So the fact that your boss was the SID, I was going to ask, how you got involved, because when you look down at your credentials and you see that you interned in that sports information office for 4 years, you're like, how did someone, get involved so quickly? But clearly that's how you got involved. So when you decided to switch over to sports management and got involved in their sports information office, was it just the fact that one day you decided, you know what, I'm going to go to a LaSalle game, and you just immediately got hooked and saw the experience of what the SID life was like?
Yeah, I went to college and I had ran track and cross country in high school, and my sister did as well. And my freshman year, I didn't want to run anymore. And I remember calling my mom and telling her I didn't want to run cross country anymore. I didn't really enjoy it. And she was like, you have to get a job. She was like, you're not just going to be some average student on college campus getting into trouble. I know you, like, you have to get a job. And so she's like, you have federal work study. Like you have to do, like, you have to do work study, like look for a work study job. So I remember going to like the school's work study job. And it was like, there was like working in the library, working in sports, in the athletics department, like working in the cafeteria. It was like the only 3 options. And I was like, well, I'm a loud person, so I cannot work in the library. Like, I know that's not an option for me. I don't want to work in the cafeteria because I don't want to like serve people's food or have to clean up after people. Like, you should clean up after yourself. So I was like, I guess I'm going to go work in the athletics department. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I'll try it out. So I went and I got my work study job in the athletics department. And like I said, the SID oversaw the students. So she was the one who kind of she hired me. And I started off like catching foul balls at baseball games and stuff.
Gotta have a start somewhere. Who was the SID at LaSalle at the time when you were a student there?
It was Janice Copolino.
Okay. I don't know the name, but okay.
Yeah, she was there my first like 3 years, and then my last year, my senior year, Todd Montana came in and got hired, I think, in like January of my senior year.
Okay. So for the most part, you had spent most of your time there, at least 3.5 years with her. So even though you at the beginning, you were shading foul balls or, bringing them back or, just kind of taking on the experience of what any work study student who's working athletic events would do. But, what were you learning and taking on from her, or from the sports information office, I should say, at such an impressionable age at that point?
She just was a boss who kind of taught us everything in small doses. And I was actually telling someone this earlier today, that she would teach us like, okay, today you're going to do the scorebook for a volleyball match. And today you're going to just track libero for volleyball. And today you're going to just do this. And so everything was kind of taught to us in small doses. And so like when I first learned what an SID was, like all the things I do now, I didn't know were multiple jobs. Like I thought they were multiple jobs. I didn't know that it was like only one person does that because of how she would train us. But I understand why she trained us that way. That like we had an opportunity to learn everything, so that when she would say, okay, you have to go, like, I have a conflict and I can't be at this sport, but you guys all can go do these jobs because you know how to do them interchangeably. If you struggle, you can help each other out. You're going to go do it that way. So like for me, that's kind of like how she taught us. And I kind of lost my train of thought there for a bit, but it was like interesting to me because there were so many different things I learned how to do. And so it kind of translated well when I first started to like understand it as a profession. But she gave us a lot of opportunities.
You really just wanted to, you kind of put your hand in multiple cookie jars because you also interned up the road in Cambridge and at Lesley University as well. So expectedly, you had all this exposure already to a sports information office, and now upon your graduation, only a few months after you graduated, you jumped right into the business full time. You became the assistant SID at Lynn University down in Boca. So first and foremost, you're only 5 months out of college. How did this first full-time gig come about for you?
Oh, it was a mess. I was a mess. I joke about it all the time now. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you guys didn't fire me. I had to have been the worst option. Like, I thought I was prepared, and I think that my undergrad did prepare me well, but there was just so many little things that people who work in sports information, athletic communications do. Like the phrase, like, you wear multiple hats, like you really wear multiple hats. And I don't think I was really prepared for that coming into my first full-time job. And so like, I would always say like all my first 2 years at Lynn were like my grad school years, because I was like a GA learning everything kind of really for the first time. But I remember like one of my first, I think I was only there for 2 or 3 weeks before my boss went, and he was gone for a week because men's soccer was in a deep national championship run, and they ended up winning. And it was like he was gone for like a week, and then he was back for a couple of days, and he was gone again because of regionals and the national championship. And so I was kind of just like there to start basketball season by myself in my first full-time job. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Someone help me. But it was cool because our assistant AD at the time, who oversaw us, Sarah Kochaki, she had started out as an SID, so she had a background. She was able to help me with some stuff and just like calm me down and problem solve things. But yeah, my first start at that first job was real rough, and I thank them for sticking with me. And they probably caused them some gray hairs and stuff, but we got through it.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue, and this just might be more of a continuation than really a different question. But what was the intimidation factor for you that more responsibility as a result was now being placed on your shoulders?
Oh my God, it was tough. It was a lot. I went from being a college kid 5 months ago, peers with these kids, to now having to be an adult and like make decisions and act like I knew what I was doing and that I was confident and experienced and that I was authority to them. And it was tough. My interns, some of them were older than me. We had men's soccer players who were like 26 my first year, I swear. They had a whole life before they came and got their master's degree in America. And I was a 21-year-old, and they were like, I was a cop in France. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. So there was a big intimidation factor on a lot of levels, but I was given really good opportunities there to grow as a young professional. And I learned a lot of lessons there. And it was an experience. I really liked my time at Lynn. It was fun.
You had mentioned the transition with you and your boss, how he had to go off with men's soccer and you're running basketball season. So do you remember specifically maybe like when you first got down to Boca, what those first few weeks were like for you in terms of you adapting to the job?
I mean, I moved down there with just a car, my mom, and like my belongings that I could fit in my car. I had no apartment. I had a cat in college that I left with my mom, and the big long running joke in my family is that I leave my pets with my mother when I don't want to be responsible anymore. But I didn't know if I was going to have an apartment where I could have a cat. So like, I just left him, back home. But yeah, we went down there and we lucked out, rented the first apartment that I found. I ended up staying there for all 3.5 years I lived in Boca. That was home. But yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into or what it was going to be like. And I remember my mom leaving after like being there for a week with me, started my first day for work. She came, I was home. She was there. My furniture arrived. We bought furniture down there. And I remember like one of the first like days I came home and my mom wasn't there, and I was like by myself. And I just remember like kind of sitting in my living room being like, oh my God, I'm an adult now. It was the first time all of that felt real. It was a crazy feeling. And then from there on out, it was just work, work, work all the time. I didn't really have much of a social life outside of work. I was just trying to learn everything because I felt like I didn't know anything sometimes.
And you talked about moving down to Boca, and I'm sure the experience between being from New York, where everything is constant go, 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 even if you're from the suburbs, to going down to Boca Raton, Florida, where everything's just much more back and relaxed. It probably threw you for a little bit of a loop as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, everyone talks like so slow, but the good thing about Boca is there's a lot of East Coast people who move down there.
Right.
So it was one of those things. You'd be in the supermarket, and you'd be getting your pub sub at Publix, and someone would be like, "Oh, South Shore, Long Island," and I'd look at them. I'd say, "Yeah, Massapequa." I'm like, "Oh, Wantagh." I'm like, "All right, cool." Because they got your accent. It's like so, like it's so known down there. Like they can pinpoint where you're from because they're from there too. So at times it felt like it was still kind of home, just a lot warmer with palm trees.
It's nice when you have those snowbirds moving down from New York to New York to South Florida. So let's turn the conversation the other way now. So obviously this is all new to you. But now you're overseeing staff. You're creating video content. You're doing all these things that you had no exposure to for the most part in college. So how did you find a way to handle it and stay composed?
I have no idea. Some days I don't feel like I'm composed, and I just had really good mentors around me who kind of guided me through the bad days, the hard days, the days where I failed, the days where I succeeded. And that's kind of just how I stayed focused and moved forward as we went.
Perfect segue. That was one of the next questions I wanted to ask you was, do you remember any, I mean, it hasn't been too long, specific mentor that from your time at Lynn that have really helped shape your career into what it is today?
Absolutely. I keep in touch with Sarah Quattrocki and had from time to time, and Sarah just got her first athletic director job. I'm so proud of her. I told her, I think I tweeted at her, like, hire me. I with her in a heartbeat again. She taught me everything, that the way I am, the way I interact with my coaches, student athletes, my coworkers, like I've learned that sense of compassion, getting to know people for who they are from Sarah. The way she cares about student athletes she works with was inspiring to me when I was my second year in the business, and it still resonates with me today. Maryville, Tennessee, they've got a great athletics director.
On top of all the great mentors that you had in your time at Lynn, you spent almost 3 years there. So do you have a favorite memory or two that sticks out from your time?
I had a lot of good memories when I was there at Lynn. My first 2 years with them, I had covered women's golf during the postseason because Chad was with men's golf, and they were both really, like, they were both top 5 teams, really successful. And so when tennis regionals was always like the week before, so I would finish up with tennis. If we advanced, I would stay with tennis, and we'd just kind of figure out the golf thing as it went. And if tennis didn't advance, I would go with women's golf. And so that was the way it had happened, was that I had gone with women's golf the first 2 years, and they won back-to-back national championships. And I knew like nothing about golf going into it, but it kind of made the experience more fun because my like excitement for things as they happened it was so pure. Like someone would get a birdie and I'd be like, "That's huge," and everyone would be like, "Yeah, it's good."
When you realize they don't do that on the golf course, right?
Yeah, I would be like, "Birdie," like not cheering loud, but I'd be like high-fiving people and stuff. They'd be like, "Nah, it's not really how it goes." But when you're competing for a national championship, like everything, and you're learning a sport for the first time, like you're thinking everything's huge. So I was into it.
So we had mentioned that you had spent up to almost 3 years at Lynn, and then you went on to hold similar stints at UNC Greensboro and at East Carolina University before accepting your current role as the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Syracuse in January of 2018. And now you've landed at this point your first Power 5 job. You're in the ACC, and no less, you're entering at Syracuse in January, and you're the women's basketball contact. So you're diving head first, feet first, whatever you want to call it.
Right on it.
Well, first and foremost, what connections led you to Syracuse?
I think that I don't know. I wouldn't say like connections. Like I knew of Pete Moore and Sue Edson before I had applied for the job at Syracuse. I'd interviewed Sue for a blog that I used to write almost 2 years prior. I didn't even think that she remembered me. And I was telling her I was coming on this podcast tonight and that I would tell this story. But when Sue called me to say that they wanted to schedule an interview with me, I had a total fangirl moment. And I told her this today, and we were laughing so hard in her office. I remember because I had called her, when I had done that interview with her, I was still at UNCG, so I had a different phone number. So I didn't save her number. Like, I lost a lot of my contacts. And so she called me when I was at ECU, and she was like, "Hi, this is Sue." And I'm thinking, like, on the phone, Sue who? Because it was just this 315 number I didn't know. And as she's talking to me, I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Sue Edson." Like, "Oh my God, this is calling me." And I was like fangirling over her, like on the phone with her. And I told her that today, and we were laughing so hard. She's like, "I can't believe you fangirled over me." I was like, "I still fangirl over you sometimes. Like, I know you're my boss and like we're very close now, but I still like sometimes I'm like, wow, I work with like an absolute goat in the business." Like,
no question about it.
yeah. But yeah, I just reached out to Pete because I kind of knew of him like through COSIDA. I think we'd been introduced to each other maybe once or twice in passing at convention in the past. And so I just reached out to him, kind of a cold email, and said, "Hey, Pete, like, I'm New York native. I'm interested in getting closer to home. Working at Syracuse would be like an awesome thing. I would like working with a top 5 women's basketball program is a goal of mine. And it would just be really something I'm interested in. Like, what more can you tell me?" And he was at Men's Basketball Media Day, and he said, "Can I give you a call tomorrow, or can I follow up tomorrow?" And so he followed up the next day. And I'm applying. I'm in. I'm all in on Syracuse. When I told my boss at ECU, Tom McClellan, that I was going to go interview at Syracuse, and that I had applied for a job and I was hoping to get an interview at Syracuse, he was like, "Oh, pack your bags, like, get the moving boxes ready. Like, you're going to get that job. You're going to go for it." And he was like, "You have my blessing. Like, I'm so excited for you. I hope you get that job." But yeah, I was 100%, I was bleeding orange from the moment I emailed Pete.
Just had that blue and orange just flowing right through you. We had already spoke about how you were diving headfirst. However, I'm going to say it again, into women's basketball season, because you were coming there in January, right in the thick. I mean, conference play, if it starts, is probably about to start. And so you're now working with a Power 5 women's basketball program, top 25 ranked in the country every year. So how are you? I mean, we spoke about your time at Lim, but this is just a whole nother ball game. How are you able to get yourself acclimated?
Yeah, I came into it like the first day of work, I had to be ready for a game the next day. And I kind of, as I was going through the interview process with Syracuse, I started watching their games and following the team a little bit, just so I felt like I would know that the bare minimum who people were when I got there, because I knew we had a game my very second day of work. But we had a great intern who was the secondary contact for women's basketball that year, who actually was serving as the primary until I came in and replaced the former contact. And she was incredible. She'll help me transition well, because she just learned how to do it herself a couple minutes earlier. So it was fresh in her head. And she was a rock star. I remember when her year, she was a postgrad intern at Syracuse. She wasn't a grad student or anything. And when she was like, her year was up, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm calling every school in the ACC and I'm making sure you get a job in the ACC. Like, I can't have you leave this conference. You're awesome." And she still works in the ACC. So we did something right with her, but Megan was awesome. But she helped me so much when I first got to Syracuse. And then just the leadership from people like Sue and Pete, and even Tyler, Susie, and Mike Morrison. Mike's not with us anymore. He left us in September. But we have like a really core group, very different group of communicators in our office. And I think that like I really learned from something from everyone. It's been really awesome. It'll continue to be awesome. And I really like our little SUAC family.
Where in the ACC is Megan now?
So after we joke that Megan likes schools that have the color orange. After Syracuse, she went down. She was the women's basketball contact at Clemson for a year, and then Miami literally poached her from Clemson, and she moved to Miami. So if everyone wants to say something about some football rivalry there, Megan gets real hype for Miami.
So I guess we could say she's not a Florida State fan, right?
No, she's not a Florida State fan. They're not an orange school, so I don't think she'd ever be a fan of them. But, there's a few other
green and orange.
We joke with her all the time. We're like, "Which orange school you going to next, Megan?" But, yeah, she went to Clemson for a year, and then Miami literally was like, "You're great. You're awesome. We want you to take women's basketball." She's like, "Okay, Miami sounds good."
Nothing wrong with going from South Carolina down to Coral Gables. It's not too bad.
Yeah, Clemson, Carolina to Coral Gables.
So over the last few years, you've been able to see all of the ACC and really the country just because you're traveling with the women's basketball program. So besides living in Central New York and knowing almost all of New York at this point, because you've lived now in Central New York, you've lived on Long Island, you were born in the city. Is there a favorite city or school that you would recommend? I mean, it doesn't even have to be basketball related. Is there a favorite city or school that you visited that you just love going back to every single year?
I would say that it's interesting for me because when I was in, like, there's a lot of places in the ACC that I've been to already. I went to college in Boston. I'm from New York. I lived in North Carolina. I lived in South Florida. So like that's half the ACC map right there when you think about it, of cities I've been around and cities I've visited. So for me, really, when I was in the American Conference with East Carolina, that's when I really saw a lot of new places in the country. I went to places like Memphis and Tulsa and, you know, Cincinnati, cities that I'm not really necessarily drawn to, but I got to see and experience traveling to those places. So I definitely would say I got to see a lot of new places there, but some of my favorite places to visit in the ACC, well, naturally it goes based on like seeing colleagues and across the conference. You know, obviously Megan, wherever she's at this year, next year. I feel bad. I feel like I'm picking on her right now. I'm sorry, Megan. But yeah, it just like that, that camaraderie of getting to see your friends across the conference when you travel.
Sure.
But I would say my favorite city to explore in the ACC, other than Syracuse, because it's obviously my favorite, I live here. I really like walking around Pittsburgh. Whenever we go to Pittsburgh, I go for a walk. I usually pray we play there on a Sunday so I can get to hang out there on a Saturday and then have like Sunday morning to go for a walk or something. But I have like a nail salon I like to go to in Pittsburgh. We go there every year, so I really enjoy Pittsburgh. And obviously, I'd be remiss to say if I don't like traveling to the Raleigh Triangle. There's a lot of great people in that area. My old roommate, Courtney, she works in NC State. I see her whenever we play one of those schools. Blacksburg, because my friend's there. I'll give the Hokies a shout out. I think they'd get mad at me if I didn't. And then obviously Megan in Miami. But travel-wise with women's basketball, my most fun I've ever had on the road is definitely Louisville. I think Louisville's a really fun city to visit. Good SID friend Brian Kleinard lives there, and we always get together. We're either going out, we're going to dinner, doing something together. So it's a lot of fun. The ACC is a cool place. Boston, I can see my college friends. Like I can't pick a favorite one. I like to explore Pittsburgh, but all of them are really great. Except maybe South Bend is really boring there. But
I was waiting for the Notre Dame drop. I was wondering when that was coming.
But like Josh Bates at Notre Dame makes it fun. Like we get together when I see him. So like I can't even hate on going to South Bend because I at least get to hang out with Josh. So it's, I don't know. I can't say like maybe Tallahassee. I don't know.
You're an inspiration, Liv. Let me tell you that. It's just great to see that, all the friends that, and colleagues that we make as SIDs in this business. And it's not even so much, I can't wait to go to South Bend, or I can't wait to go to Durham, or I can't wait to go to, to Miami and just, Miami and bake in the sun. It's just great to see. We all say that in the SID business that we're all just one big family, and that's really the case. But when you go to Pittsburgh, Liv, though, you must dine into a Primanti Brothers sandwich, right?
I've never had one. I don't know. It's not something I've like gone after. Everyone's always like, "Oh my God, have you had one?" I'm like, "Nah, I haven't had a sandwich there yet. Maybe next year I'll try." This year was a little weird because of COVID. I couldn't really explore.
Yeah.
I definitely I walk to all the arenas. I walk by PNC Park. I'll go out to Heinz Field and back. Like if the weather's nice, that's such a walkable city, Pittsburgh, and the people are so friendly there too. So I really enjoy it.
So we spoke about how when you got to Syracuse, you were right in the thick of conference season for Syracuse women's basketball, and that year, 2 months later, they're in the NCAA tournament. So your first time NCAA Division I women's basketball championship working for Syracuse, what was that experience like for you? Were there any jitters for you, even as a professional in this business?
Oh my gosh, so many jitters. I remember selection Monday. We had a watch party with our season ticket holders, and we were projected as like a 7, 8, 9 area, kind of like this year too. And we were like, all right, where are we going to go? And I think we were the 8 in an 8-9 game in the last region of the bracket announced. And I was just like, we're going to get selected, right? Like you get those nerves. Coach Q's over there looking at me like, why are you freaking out? And I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, the only time I've ever been part of an NCAA tournament, like especially when I was at Lynn, was like we were automatic qualifiers. We won a conference championship. You know, we were in because we knew we were in, and so that like waiting to just like as a at large, I've never experienced it before. And then I'm like, why is everyone getting announced and not us? And so I was a little nervous going down there. We played in Starkville down at Mississippi State, and I just remember being like so hyped up. I remember Tamika Catchings calling our game, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like everything was so cool about it. But yeah, I was so intimidated. We ended up losing the first round. That totally stunk. We flew home the next morning from Starkville. And so it was just like, oh, we're spending an extra night in Starkville, Mississippi, and we just lost. And like at that point, you're just like, that's deflating. You're all hyped up like 2 days ago, a day ago about postseason, and then it's like all over. It's the worst part of the postseason is when you like lose and you're waiting to go home, and it's just like, wow, it's all like this whole season's over. It's the part I hate the most about basketball season is when it ends.
Yeah, and especially when you're traveling really from early November straight in through, you hope it's until April. I mean, you hope you're in the Final Four, but I mean, in theory, you're traveling for the better part of 5 months, and you know, you're home for a week, and then you're away for a week, and so on and so forth. But it's got to create a lot of exciting times and a lot of great camaraderie. And speaking of that, I can't omit your relationship with the recently graduated from Syracuse, Tiana Mangakaya, who just recently signed a deal with the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury. You guys actually came to Syracuse. When you look at the timeline, you came to Syracuse together, really. She just has such an incredible story about overcoming breast cancer that's been covered across the nation, across the globe. But I want to get the relationship that you really from the horse's mouth here, because I know the relationship that you have, with Tiana, and I really would love you to share your relationship with her and what she's meant to you.
Yeah, she slept on my couch the other night before she flew to Phoenix when I dropped her off at the airport. She is, we're family, man. It was interesting, when I mentioned earlier before I came for my job, when I started the application and interview process, I started watching Syracuse's games to know the team as best as I could. And she stood out to me from the beginning. Like, she's just a special person. She's so caring, and people who really understand her know that. And the way she plays, she's so fun to watch. Oh my gosh, she's such a talented, gifted player. And I remember watching one of the first games I vividly remember watching of for Syracuse when I was still down at ECU was her scoring, having a 17 assist game. And it was just program record. And I remember being like, 70 assists a game. Like, this girl is different. She's special. So, and when I got to meet her, when I got here, she was a star on our team, and she had a lot of media requests. And that's kind of like where we started to spend a lot of time together, like, hey, you have an interview today. All right, we'll do it in your office. Okay, come to my office this time. And so we spent a lot of time together. Tiana's a very honest, open person. She tells it like it is. She doesn't really care. And so that's what I kind of appreciate about her, because that's how I am. And we got close, and I loved being her SID the last 4 years, obviously. I remember when she decided she was eligible to go in the draft in 2019, and we had just come off hosting that tournament that year, and we had a really big season. She had a huge season. And she decided she wanted to come back for one more year. And I remember that weekend she was deciding to come back or not. And she kept calling me, I'm staying, I'm going, I'm staying, going. I said, I can't deal this anymore with you. Like, you're killing me. Call me when you make your decision. Okay. So she called me Sunday night. It was like 10 o'clock. The deadline was at midnight. So dramatic, of course, like the final hour. And she's like, I've made my decision. And I'll never forget. I was sitting on the couch that's right behind me. And she was like, I'm staying. And I said, did you tell Coach Q yet? She was like, no, not yet. I said, it's not official till you tell him, call me back. So I made her call Coach Q, because like she had gone back and forth so many times over the weekend that I was like, just tell him. Once you tell him, it's official. So you tell him. And I remember waking up the next morning being like, it was April 1st. And I was like, April Fool's, like, are you still staying? And she was like, yeah, I'm staying. Like, let's run it back one more year. And then like, you go from like that high, like Tiana's coming back, we're gonna have a great season, we have this crazy good team coming in, and then poof, 3 months later, cancer diagnosis, losing her hair, chemo, and just like how quickly that happened for her. And I remember when she was making her decision that she said something like, everything's telling me I should go to the draft. Everyone's telling me go into the draft, start your career as a pro athlete, but something in my heart is telling me to stay. And I swear, like, things happen for a reason. It's cliche as it sounds, but like, she had a gut feeling to stay at Syracuse, and who knows where she would have been or what her condition would have been, when she would have found her cancer, if she wasn't at Syracuse. And so like, things happened the way they did. We just have like a lot of faith, and had a really good positive attitude throughout all of that. But like, she had a feeling to stay. And I remember just that whole weekend back and forth, like, T, you gotta choose. And then, when she got sick and everything, I didn't know what to do. And we already had a close relationship, and she just wanted me to be the one to be there for her. I don't know why. I'm sure I annoyed her a lot of times, but I love that kid. She's closer in age with me than she is with some of her teammates. I mean, she's older. She's 25 already. I'm 30. So I always say she's like a little sister I never had. I'm really excited for her future, and I miss her a lot already. The daily FaceTime calls have not stopped. I'm sure I'll still get tons of questions from her. But yeah, miss her a lot. She was a special kid, and she never showed her bad days. And that's something that I really learned from her, is like, I'm trying to get better at not showing my bad days as much.
What was it like when the news had broken? I'm sure you knew about the news a lot sooner than most, but that she was going into remission, that she was actually overcoming, cancer. What was that like for you on a personal note?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when she told me, I had just come back from convention, from COSIDA's convention, and I was like riding a high, just being with some of my best friends in the business for a week, and might have been the year I won the Rising Star Award. No, it wasn't. It was the year after. But it was like, I just had a great time. And I remember going to the office to drop some stuff off, and she was like, hey, can I come see you? And I was like, yeah, come by. So she came by and she told me she found a lump. And I was like, oh, you're gonna be fine. Like, that's what we all said. And so just from like that, when she told me she had cancer, like, my dad passed from cancer. I remember when she called me to tell me what the results were from her scans, crying on the phone. I sat on the floor in my apartment and I just started crying because I didn't know what to do, and I automatically thought the worst. But she is like such a bright light, and she was like, we're not going to be sad, we're not going to be upset, like, don't ever cry in front of me, like, just don't be sad that I have cancer, because I'm just going to get through this. And I was like, okay, like, let's roll. So but yeah, and then when she was like declared cancer free, it was after her surgery, when she had her double mastectomy. And I remember we had field hockey was playing in the conference tournament in Boston. And so her surgery was supposed to be that morning. It was our men's basketball home opener versus Virginia. They're coming off our national championship. It was like this big hyped up game with men's basketball. Tiana had surgery. Mello was coming back to the Dome. I was so sad. I was missing Mello. But I promised Tiana I'd be there when she got out of surgery, and she had her parents there with her, and they were texting me all day. Her surgery got delayed. And I think that she got out of surgery at like 6 p.m. And I drove over to the center where she had her surgery, and I kind of like snuck in because they were closed. It was in a hospital facility. It was like a surgery center, and they don't have visitors after a certain time, but like all her nurses and doctors and even the receptionists like that were there knew me from seeing her all the time and me with her at her doctor's appointments. They kind of just like let me go in. No one stopped me. And I walked upstairs. I got to the floor she was on, and her doctor was there on the phone with someone, and she's like, oh, hey, Olivia, she's in that room, just go right in. So I like knocked on the door, walked in. She was like fresh out of like recovery, and her parents were there. Wow. And she was like, and it was like her doctor was, her doctor had just told her like, yeah, there was no more cancer in your body, nothing in your lymph nodes either, like, you're all good. So she was like very emotional, and I was just like, oh my God, I didn't mean to like come in on this family moment. And she was like, I'm happy you were there. So yeah, I was there like just shortly after her surgery, and I remember leaving at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, being like, I have to get on the road. I have to drive to Boston, and I don't like driving at night. I don't like driving at night in the winter. And I was like, all right, let's go. So yeah, but I remember going, and I was like, and like everyone's like, don't go to the hospital. Like, she'll understand. And I was just like, I promised her though. Like, I promised her I'd be there when she got out of surgery that night, and I'd see her. And I can't like, I can't go to Boston for field hockey with a good conscience knowing that I just didn't do that for her. So I made sure I went.
She's just such an inspiration, and to hear the story firsthand from you, Liv, who's just so close with her. And I want to thank also for the comment, Jim, for the comment saying awesome story. It's just it really is. There's no question about it. And just want to wish from all of us here at the Eastern Observer to congratulate T on just being that inspiration. Best of luck to her. Hopefully we'll see her in the WNBA real soon.
Yeah, I told her that I already checked the schedule, and their second game, the Phoenix Mercury's second game of the year is in Connecticut. And I was like, I'll see you at Mohegan Sun because I'll be there. You better make that roster because I'm going. So I already told Sue, I said, I need the day off. I'm going to Mohegan. And she was like, what? I said, yeah, the Mercury's playing the Connecticut Sun that day. So I got to be there.
She's already got her hotel room booked, and she's set to go.
Yeah, I'm in there. I might even hit the tables on my way in or out of Mohegan.
Two other people I can't leave out of this discussion in your time at Syracuse, and we've already dropped their names, but again, I think we have to mention them even more, is Sue Edson and Pete Moore, and just the legends that they are within our business, and how much they've given to the business that is COSIDA, the business that is just the SID profession, on top of their devotion and their work for Syracuse University. So you had spoke about it a little bit, but we're just going to elaborate on it a little more. What is it like going to work every day to be able to know that when you come into work, you get to work with two people like Sue and Pete every day?
Honestly, like, this is going to sound weird, but like, any day I walk into the office, they never make you feel like they're as accomplished as they are. Like, they're the most modest people in the world. Like, you make a comment like, oh, Pete, you're one of the goats. He's like, well, whatever. This is how he is. He's like, whatever. Like, today when I was telling Sue that when she called me to schedule an interview with me for my job, I was fangirling on the phone, like my other cell phone, like texting my friends, like, oh my God, Sue's on the phone. That kind of stuff like weirds them out, I guess. But they're just really modest. I've learned, like, even today, like, I was working on something with Sue, and I went in there, and she, sometimes, like, she's one of those bosses who, like, question you to help you find the answer yourself or find the solution yourself, and she makes you better that way. And I was working on something, and she was like, hey, did you think about this? And I was like, no, I didn't. But now I'm thinking about it. So let's do that. And, and just like, she's always like one step ahead of you, kind of, when it comes to working with media and all different things. And working with her has been like, I've learned a lot from her. She's learned a lot from me this year. She's taken on working with some of our Olympic sports because of COVID things. And it's so funny, like, when she goes in, she'll come to my office, she'll be like, hey, do you have a minute? Can you show me how to do this? And I'll be like, oh, I love teaching my boss how to do new things. And like, he'll be like, hey, can you explain this to me? And I'm like, oh, this is fun, because I feel like I'm the one who's always asking them questions. So it's fun when you get to, like, reciprocate that back a little bit. But they're so fun to work with. And even, like, Susie's been there a really long time at Syracuse, and I feel like a lot of people don't give Susie, like, they kind of forget because she's not like a bigger name in the business, but Susie's like, she keeps me grounded at work. She keeps me stable when I have questions and I'm frantic about things. She's just so calm and collected, and she's been doing this for a really long time. She's started at Syracuse in the late 90s, and she works with a really, really talented women's lacrosse program. And the way that Susie has adapted herself over time and continues to learn new things in our business and try new things and asks questions and wants help. And she's awesome. And then obviously I have to mention Tyler in our office. He's fantastic. He was like the first friend I made when I started working at Syracuse. And I don't think that I would survive. I would have survived my first year without him. I definitely don't think I would survive like this year without him. I know some days he doesn't like sharing an office wall with me because I'm a loud person, but he's really awesome. And he just brings a different approach to things sometimes and really challenges our staff. And I really appreciate that about them. So yeah, there's Sue and Pete in there, but there's also Susie and Tyler that have really made it, like SUAC. And we have a lot like strong intern group that comes through, and we have so many people who work in the profession that once worked in the Syracuse athletic department. And so we call ourselves SUAC. It's definitely a family, and I'm like really, really fortunate that I get to be part of it and help like grow that family. In
your time at Syracuse in your 3+ years now, one game, I guess, that you could think of? Because I wanted to touch on this before when we spoke about all your exposure, Liv, to the ACC. But is there one game that you've seen in person, just on the pandemonium alone, that maybe you would want to, but not really want to relive again, just because of how great the moment was?
That's a really tough question. I feel like in my few years at Syracuse, there's been a lot of like crazy games that I've been at or that I've been a part of, whether it's been as a fan. I was at a men's basketball game where Tyus Battle hit a shot to beat Georgetown with like 2 seconds left. It was the first game I ever went to at the Dome as a fan for men's basketball, and it was like, what a cool experience. Like 27,000 people there screaming for basketball. I loved it. But yeah, there's like so many different moments for women's basketball specifically that stand out to me. And obviously, like this year, we had a really big win in the ACC tournament on a buzzer beater, which also featured a buzzer beater at halftime that was just top 10 play. And in the same game, when we were down 15 in the first half, we had a player go down with a really scary back injury and taken off the court on the spine board. And so like that game, just like from emotional wise, like you were at a really low point and then a high point with the buzzer beater at halftime and then battling back to win on a buzzer beater. It was like a crazy, crazy emotional game. And that was our win against Florida State. It was a lot of fun. But even like, I've seen our field hockey team yesterday lost to the number 1 team in the country 4-3 in overtime. They scored 3 unanswered goals to take a 3-2 lead. Like the way that our student athletes compete here at Syracuse and the way that they buy into things and fight for each other and do their jobs, like specifically in their role when they're playing and competing, and the way that they'll compete to the very end. It's so fun to watch. So there's been a lot of really good moments. We had a crazy buzzer beater in Cancun that Tiana hit my first full year with the team. We were talking about that game the other night, actually. And this is probably one of my favorite. It was a ranked matchup with DePaul, and we went into overtime, and she hit this crazy layup under the basket. It was probably one of my favorite moments I've seen as an SID. In Cancun, like it was so much fun to win the tournament. But yeah, there's been some really good ones. But women's basketball are buzzer beaters, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Game-winning buckets in Mexico. I'm not sure you can put together a better combination, right?
Yeah. That was a fun one, man.
Liv, I think we'd be remiss not to mention, and we've done it on every show so far, to talk about the story last year that really rocked the world, which was COVID-19. And can you take us through the events of what happened on Syracuse? I mean, obviously Syracuse Selection Sunday, I should say, hadn't happened yet. We were only a few days away, but teams at conference tournaments. I mean, basketball right in the thick of really March Madness, and spring teams getting going. So can you take me through the events of what happened on Syracuse's campus when the announcement came down that all sports were coming to a stop?
Yeah, we had just kind of gotten back from ACC tournament ourselves the weekend prior. I was really sick at ACC tournament. So anyone who's listening to me here, I told you all then that I thought I had coronavirus, and no one listened to me, but I know I had it. But yeah, we came back, and I remember being like really sick and having to like get work done for Selection Monday, because we could have gotten in, but might not have. We didn't have like the best season. We had a really up and down season. And so I knew, okay, we might be doing WNIT. I have to be ready for that. And so I didn't even like take that weekend off like I normally do. And so I kind of just like went home. I usually go home like the weekend after ACCs. I'd go home to like visit my mom, my family for a weekend before we go to like postseason. So like I come back before Selection Monday. And so I was at work or whatever. We came home a weekend early, whatever it was. My mom was like, don't come home this weekend, come home next weekend, which was the weekend before Selection Monday. I had like a week in between, and I was going to come home, and she said not to. So then I stayed at work, and we were watching, like, I remember watching like the Summit League Women's Basketball Championship on like that Monday. And like people were talking about COVID nonstop. Tuesday, Wednesday, like we're watching the men's basketball tournament. Our men's team was one of the last teams to play a full game that year. Like we had just beat North Carolina, and the next thing you know, like I remember sitting in my room when like the NBA canceled their season at night, like watching it on TV, like breaking news, the NBA cancels the season or whatever it was. We were like, what is going on? They went on pause, and it was crazy watching it unfold. We watched it. Like, I remember it was just like all we were talking about in the office. Like the TV was on 24/7. I remember, when the Ivy League pulled the plug on playing sports, and I'm a rowing SID, so like selfishly I was like, oh, we were number 8, now we're like number 3 in the country because all the Ivies that were ahead of us are not playing anymore. And like I joked about that with just recently with one of our rowing coaches, like, oh, I remember when I was like, hey, we're top 5 team, and then like it wasn't really a joke though, because like the whole world, we were a nothing team because like the whole season's over now. But like that's kind of how it was at first, you just kind of watched it all unfold. Remember like bringing my like computer home and being like, all right, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I'm going to work from home. And then like just everything kind of shut down. I ended up going home for the weekend and we were still in the office. And then like that Tuesday, I called Sue and I was like, hey, I'm just going to stay home for like a couple more days. Like we're not playing any games right now. Like I'll come back up. And then like everything kind of started to get worse. And I was like, all right, maybe I have to go back up to Syracuse. But I was actually home when like the NCAA canceled the season and they were like, there'll be no postseason. I was all home on Long Island when it happened because I was just like, I'm going to wait here until I know what's happening. I didn't want to, this like crazy fear that I was about to be like the movie The Day After Tomorrow or something. Like,
yeah.
Like, and I was like, well, I want to be with my mom. Like I'm a 30-year-old baby over here. Like, what if they close the bridges and tunnels? Like, Mom, why do you live on an island? Like, I was like, a boat. Like I was freaking out. I was so scared. So I was just like, I'm going to stay on Long Island and be with my family. If this thing gets really bad, like you didn't know. And I was like, I don't want to be by myself in Syracuse. Like I got friends there, but like nothing's better than family.
That's true. So, you already described just how, everything with the winter and spring being canceled. So, you're home at this point, and at some point you're like, I have to go back up to Syracuse. But you're also like during this whole pandemic, you're still trying to find ways as you and SID to push out content and to continue remaining proactive instead of reactive. So, how were you specifically able to push forward and just continue to keep content fresh?
Yeah, I'll be lying if I didn't say it was a struggle. I mean, we tried different things like having our student athletes do takeovers and what they were doing, like sure. I feel like especially like the heart of quarantine time last year, like that March, April, May time of year before everyone's like, oh, the weather's nice, let's go outside and just try and live our lives again. People were like doing new things or learning new things or trying new things for the first time. And so like, I just tried to capitalize that with our student athletes. We did so much Zooms, like Zooming interviews, talking about what you're doing here. Oh, you're going hiking. Let's do an interview about that. Oh, you traveled to visit this teammate who lives on the other side of the state. Let's do like, it was just like you were trying. And I felt like everyone was trying the same thing. It was really hard. But we all got through it. There were days where there would go like days where I didn't post anything. Like nothing. I have nothing to post, Some days I still have those days. But it was hard to just keep going. But things happened and, student athletes got more comfortable being on camera. But yeah, at first it was tough. I remember like, I'm a big fan of watching like classic games, but I tell you, if I never have to watch certain games again, like I felt like ESPN, ACC Network, and all of them like played a lot of the same games all the time. Like if I love our 6 overtime game for men's basketball. Trust me, love it. But I felt like that game was on all the time because it took so much TV time up, right? Like,
yeah,
6 overtime game, you're getting like a solid like 4 hours there. So
I fell asleep. I fell asleep. I didn't stay awake for the whole game. Yeah. I remember it too. So
it was like one of those things where like I felt like during COVID, when they needed to fill all this TV time with sports on sports channels, they would just like throw the 6 overtime game on. So now I joke like I'm never watching it again. Like I walk past the TV that plays in the office every day in our Hall of Fame. But, like I'm never sitting and watching a 6 overtime game. And I must have watched it like 4 or 5 times during COVID because it was just always on. I was like, oh, I love this part. Like it's a movie.
Did you make sure to tell Jerry that when you're walking down the halls
no,
with him?
Oh my God, I would never tell Jerry that.
That's funny. I'd be remiss, Liv, to not talk about also your dedicated work to COSIDA and becoming so heavily involved, with our national government organization. You serve as the chair of the Young Professionals Committee. You also sit on the New Media Committee, and you're also a member of WOSIDA, which is the Women of COSIDA. So can you tell us, to all of us that are watching, listening, and me, a little bit about your involvement on these committees, especially WOSIDA, and how it's really further embraced women in our business and to invite them to come work in sports?
Yeah. I just got involved on like what you give into COSIDA and you put into it, it will give back to you tenfold. I've gotten so many different opportunities in my career because of connections I've made through COSIDA. Like I said, like I cold emailed Pete Moore because I knew his name and had met him once at COSIDA. Like that wouldn't have happened if COSIDA wasn't part of my life. And I just want to be able to give back to it. I will be completely honest. I've not been the best the last few years. But I hope to get better at giving back to our organization and trying to do better in doing so. The Young Professionals Committee is really cool. They're doing some really cool things right now. And we're growing that committee. It was a committee that started and I was the first chair of it. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm thankful that the leaders of COSIDA said, hey, Liv, this is in your hands. And I feel at times that I've totally fallen flat on my face with it. And then at other times I've succeeded with things with it. So it's cool to be given that opportunity and a new challenge. But COSIDA is awesome. WUSIDA is awesome. We started this thing called Wind Down Wednesday on Wednesdays, and we try to do it about once every month or every 2 months. And in COVID, it was really, really fun because you weren't getting to see your colleagues as much, and you get like 50 female SIDs on a COSIDA call with some wine, and we're having a good time, laughing, playing games, telling stories, and just learning from each other, helping each other through parts of our careers. It's really cool. I really enjoy COSIDA, and I try to get all my student interns who work with me in the office to sign up for a student membership and, check the job boards there and make your connections. And if there's anyone that you want to learn from or you want to connect with that I might know, let me know, guys. I'll help you out in any way I can. And I just feel like that's how we're going to continue to grow our profession, especially like the female side of things. Like you're going to grow and you're going to have it continue to grow in the right direction if you are putting things in, if you're putting the right resources into it and you're putting yourself into it. So
I know you're Italian on both sides. You prefer red or white?
I prefer red wine, but it gives me I don't have good acid reflux for that. So I have to like take medicine before I drink red wine. I'm like the most pathetic Italian ever. But I prefer red wine. All my friends drink white wine. I'm like, oh, it's too sweet. I don't like this. It's too sweet. But yeah, I'm a red wine person. I prefer Chianti. It's actually my favorite red wine.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. We'll have to have some off-camera talks about red wine after this. But
yes, I'm a true wine connoisseur. Not really.
Next time you're in Massapequa, we'll have a glass of wine together. You had mentioned that you received such an honor being named in 2018 the University Division, the recipient of the Rising Star Award. And for those that follow me on Twitter, saw I put a little pun in there, a rising star in our business, and I meant the pun because you were named the COSIDA's Rising Star Award winner in 2018. So to be thought of that way, by your peers in the business, to be thought of that way is to know that you are going to eventually lead this organization into the future. What did that honor mean to you?
Oh, lead it to the future. That's a lot of pressure there. But
I don't think they call you a rising star because they think you plan on leaving in a year. So
no, I don't think that either, but I don't know. It's a lot of pressure. Yeah, I don't know. It was really awesome. It was like such an honor. My best friend in the business had won it the year before me. So we were just coming off Chelsea's Rising Star year, and for me to win it after her, that was really cool. And we had a lot of fun saying, we were back-to-back Rising Stars and stuff like that. But just to be recognized by your peers, people who see what you're doing, the work you're putting into your job and growing as an individual. It was really such an honor. That plaque hangs on my wall. Sue made sure that I put on the wall in my office. I had it like in the box on a shelf for like maybe 6 months after I got back from convention. And she was sitting in my office one day and I was on my desk and she said, "What's this box?" And I said, "Oh, that's my Rising Star Award." And she took it out and she put it on the shelf and she said, "You need to display this." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like I try not to be like, it's not about me, it's about our student athletes. So like I don't need my award showing, but I am really proud of it. And when I moved offices this summer, I made sure that I hung it on the wall prominently so you can see it. So Sue always likes to say like, "Oh, I see your plaque hanging on the wall," or "Your plaque looks nice today." And I'm like, "Thank you." But
I applaud your selflessness though, Liv. I applaud your selflessness, but it's great to see that someone who truly is a rising star in our profession is just continue doing so well like yourself. That's great.
Thank you.
I want to take a few minutes to talk about something that you had mentioned at the top of our discussion, which was about the lack of gender equality in sports, and especially for someone who was at the NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championship and saw the news that had broke about the inadequate accommodations as compared to the men. How do you feel from someone who experienced that, but also as a woman in our business? How can we change that narrative, in your opinion?
Well, first and foremost, I think the way to change the narrative is that you shouldn't have to change the narrative. It should be part of the narrative. Women should be talked about as athletes and not female athletes, just athletes. But yeah, I think that, I've never shied away from speaking my opinion when I don't think something's fair, or when I would like to see something be changed, or if something I don't think is equal. And so for me, with everyone who's now aware of the inequality between genders in college sports and even just sports in general, thank you for paying attention now. And I hope you continue to pay attention. Sadly, I read the manual before we went to the women's basketball bubble. I knew what the weight room was going to look like. I knew that they would expand it after the first 2 rounds and all that stuff. And so when we got there and everything was going viral on social media, it's almost sad that I was just why are we acting surprised? And that's sad. That's so sad that I'm not even surprised by it. I'm like, oh yeah, duh, so for me, that was that's kind of how I felt. And like I said, we had a good bubble experience. We stayed in a great hotel. The NCAA staff who was stationed in our hotel, they were super helpful. We felt safe from COVID the whole time. We felt fueled by the right foods and stuff. And so we didn't have some of the experiences that other people had when it came to that. So obviously made ours a little different, but even just walking around the arena and seeing, there's a yoga mat and a rack of weights. What Division I athlete, period, even any sport I work with at Syracuse, that wouldn't be adequate. And at Syracuse where I work, our men's and women's basketball programs have their own workout facility. They have their own facility, and everything that men's basketball has in there and has access to in there, women's basketball has access to. So for me, to go to see the bubble and then see the pictures that the men were posting and the pictures that the women are posting, and well, that sucks. It's not right. I don't have that experience at Syracuse. And it's tough to see, but it's gotta be the conversation. It can't just be let's talk about this now, or let's change this narrative. That needs to be the narrative. Yeah,
it's not even so much talking about Title IX as it is that we need to just build off what Title IX set out to do. You individually live in your time just working in this business. How have you felt yourself as a woman working in the sports business?
Okay. I don't think I've ever had any really bad experiences. I will say when I was a freshman in college, and this is such a small story that I don't even think that the people involved would remember it. But when I was a freshman in college, like I said, my boss would give us all assignments to do. Okay, today you're going to do the book. You're going to do this. And it was spring break. And I stayed at school to work over spring break. And I only went home for a couple of days. And so we had a men's lacrosse game, and I was doing the penalty clock. And I had no idea. It was the first time. I didn't really know lacrosse. Is my first spring at college. I was just really learning the details on these sports. And so I was trying to count backwards from 10. And I was just saying it, thinking I needed to say it to the table, not project my voice and scream 10, 9, 8. And the coach of the other team we were playing was freaking out on me, screaming at the table, yelling at the officials, yelling at me. And our coach, who was assistant AD at our school at the time, Coach Dunn turned around and was you're not going to talk to her like that. And it was the first time I saw a male stand up for a woman in a sports setting. Not that I ever saw a male put a woman down, but it was just he just went nuts. And I was oh my God, this is cool, to see that he was supporting me. And I was just this little baby freshman who was trying to count backwards from 10. But it was such a cool experience. And Coach Dunn probably would never even remember that to this day, or that detail. But it was really cool to see a male coach and administrator sticking up for a young female.
we're seeing a lot of instances here, Liv, and too many, or one too many for anyone's liking, where women are feeling intimidated about working in sports because of maybe the way that they're looked at or approached, and unfairly. And aside from being part of that narrative, as you had mentioned, I mean, what is the best way for all of us of any gender, of any identity? I mean, this doesn't even just focus on women. This could be of anyone of sexual identity or whatever it may be. That how do we need to advocate for those people going forward to make them feel comfortable?
I think that, well, I'm a big fan of blind interviews, like only phone interviews, because I think that a lot of people get judged by how they look, or how they're seen, or how they carry themselves. And I think that your work should speak for yourself and the work that you do. I think that we need to continue to give women a seat at the table, give minorities a seat at the table, whether that's because of sexual orientation or color of your skin. You just need to give people an opportunity to have a seat at the table. I like to preach to our student athletes all the time, and people that I meet, like, all you need is one opportunity. You know, I had my one opportunity given to me by a female, and well, two people, Chad and Sarah, but by a female who had someone given her opportunity when she was young. And I've had, you know, I got an opportunity to come here at Syracuse, and that's all you need to succeed is one opportunity. And so I got my foot in the door because someone gave me a chance, and someone's going to give you a chance, but you just need to take advantage when you see opportunity in front of you. And so I think we need to continue to give people opportunities to succeed.
Liv, as you look back at your careers thus far in college athletics, I mean, I don't want to say, do you ever say to yourself, because I'm sure you do, but, you know, do you ever say to yourself that this is where I was meant to be in the SID business, and that, not that nothing else was meant for me, but just that this is where my path lied?
I'm going to try and not get emotional when I say this, because I've kind of come to this realization lately. You know, I mentioned earlier, like, things happen for a reason, and people cross your paths. And, like, for an example, like, I truly believe that I came to Syracuse at the same time that Tiana came to Syracuse, so our paths would cross and I would get to know her, and I would be there for her as her SID and now as her friend as she moves on in her life. But I felt that, like, in multiple times in my career, that, like, I am where I'm supposed to be right now. And then there's been times in my career where I felt like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I need to move on, or I'm ready for the next adventure. I've grown. I shouldn't say outgrown. I've grown as much as I will here. And so for me, that's just kind of that. Like, I just feel like, not as a whole, like, okay, Syracuse University, women's basketball, 30 years old, living downtown Syracuse is where I'm supposed to be. Like, no, I wouldn't say that, but I think that there's situations that have happened in my life and in my career where I've been like, okay, I was supposed to be here for this. I was supposed to be here to have this when this happened. And so I like to look at it that way, as opposed to, like, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to be right here at Syracuse right now. Or I was supposed to be at Lynn at 21 years old, like, running away from tropical storms and snakes.
No, that's well said. I mean, do you think that, you know, when you go to work every day, do you think of when you walk into the building every day as work?
I would say this year, yeah. This year, there's been days where I've usually been, like, a pretty stickler. Like, I'm at the office by 9, at 9, walking in at 9. There's some days, and it could be a day where I don't even have a game, or I don't feel stressed, but I just wake up and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do it today. Like, this just feels like a lot of work.
Right.
Feel fun. Some days it doesn't feel fun. And I think a lot of that is the pandemic, COVID fatigue, as they call it. And just, like, a lot of exhaustion. But yeah, I mean, I still love what I do. I get hyped up on game day. I love talking a little bit of smack to the opposing SID if it's someone that I'm friendly with. If it's someone I'm not friendly with and I talk smack, like, I'm sorry, I'm a New Yorker. Like, that's just what I do. But, like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I enjoy it. I love meeting new student athletes. I love learning their stories and talking to them, and I love watching our kids graduate. I'm so sad that graduation like messed up the last 2 years, because like, the last graduation, in 2019, we had 5 seniors that year, and I went to every single one of like their school's graduation ceremonies. Like I think I might have missed one actually because there was a conflict, but I like even our interns in the SUAC office, like when they graduated, they're like, hey, Liv, will you come to my graduation? Yes, I'm in there. Like I'm watching you like reach a milestone in your life, and I want to be there to support you for it. So I love that part of my job. That's so much fun. And graduation the last 2 years, it's a long weekend for me because I'm trying to hit all these different ceremonies and finding a parking place. This year I'll just walk from my apartment, but it's something I really do love about my job.
It's a great feeling to start getting those emails. Even I got one today about grad walks and getting excited about just seeing, not even just student athletes, but just the student body after having their graduations and their commencement walks just robbed from them last year. To see them walk this year is just going to be a great moment, I think, for everybody. We always close with the last few questions here, Liv, but we do appreciate all the comments that have come in so far. And as we're getting ready to wrap up tonight's conversation, we do welcome any more comments if people would like to add them into the comment box before we wrap up. But last few questions I have for you here, Liv, is first and foremost, who has, when you look back on your life and say that I'm working in sports and I love what I do, who has been your biggest inspiration to help you achieve your goals? Who have been those role models for you during your life?
My mom, my dad, just wanting to make them proud. Like my mom isn't a sports person. And so like I grew up without my dad. And so for me, that was always kind of like, okay, well, dad would have done this with me, or dad would have been into this with me. And I don't think I ever even vocalized that a lot growing up. And even now, I don't think I like say that to my mom, but I felt like being around sports and being into sports was like what connected me to him, because even who knows? My dad was also a musician. He could have hated sports. Like I know he liked them because he watched them when I was a kid, but like he could have not been as into it as I am. He could have been like, oh, that's cool, you have a game tonight. Like maybe I'll watch it, But like for me, that was always just how I thought of it. And so like wanting to make him proud, and like my mom, she's so funny. I never played basketball, but she is a diehard Syracuse women's basketball fan. She watches the men's games too, doesn't follow them as like closely, but she's so funny. She like will text me on game day, what time's the game? And I text her back, Mom, look at the website that I run. Like, are you kidding me? I get so mad at her. I'm like, Mom, stop commenting on social media on my team posts. Like, she's so into it. And so she calls me after a game, or she'll call me the day after a game. She'll be like, did you rewatch the game? Like, oh, what did you think about it? Like watching basketball with her is like really the best, because she's like, that's a travel. I'm like, that's not really a travel, Mom. She's like learning it, and she's like, she loves it. She's like so invested in the players on our team and our coaches. And she's always like, tell them I say hi, tell them I say good luck, tell them I said this. And like, after a loss, she sends me like a paragraph, and she's like, this is what you need to tell the girls from me. And I'm like, okay, Mom, calm down. But like, it's so cute how so invested she is. And so like, that's always motivated me. And even like my sister's not a big sports person, but she, just the way she like she's my sister. If I have a bad day at work, I'm going to call my sister. And some of it's probably like, I'm speaking like hieroglyphics to her, like writing. She doesn't know what I'm saying, or I don't think you could speak hieroglyphics. I know you could write them, but anyway, like to her, it doesn't make any sense. And she's still there and supporting me and my sister, and she comes to my games. I make her sometimes. But yeah, they've been like big inspirations to me. And then just like a lot of different people in COSIDA have been really great leaders for me. I don't really want to name anyone single, cause I don't want to forget anyone, but I've had really great former bosses in Chad Beatty and Sarah Kochaki at Lynn, and Matt McAllister at UNCG, and Tom McClellan at ECU, and obviously Sue here at Syracuse. They've all been really good. When I was at ECU, I used to tell Tom he was the best boss. He was one of the best bosses I ever had. For me specifically, like Matt was a good boss and Chad was a good boss, but like Tom was a really good boss for me and my personality and how I am. And I remember when I was leaving for Syracuse, he was like, you always said I was your best boss. Like, I'm not going to be the best boss anymore. Like, Sue Edson's going to be a better boss from you. Like, you might not believe me, but like, you'll see it one day. And like, Tom's right. She's the best female boss I've ever had, because he's still up there. I can't let him lose that title. But I've had really, really good mentors in my in my time, and really, really good people. I know Ira's watching, so I have to say Ira, he was a huge help to me when I was really first starting to rise in the business. And so there you go. He loves this edition of the show. Thank you for watching, Ira. But yeah, I've had some really good mentors.
For those, I mean, we're 13 months past the start of the pandemic, but we still see those SIDs that are unemployed, furloughed, haven't been retained as a result of those that lost their jobs because of financial situations at their institutions, whatever it may be. So what would be your advice, really to an SID that's looking to get their start in the business that right now can't because they're trying to get their foot in the door, or for those that really right now are still looking for jobs? How would you tell them to keep their head high?
I would honestly say that, first of all, I'm sorry that they're in the position that they're in, that the world's in a really crappy place right now, but this won't last forever. And just keep your faith and keep your head up and keep pursuing opportunities as they come, as you see them. And that if you ever need someone to try and crack a really bad joke or just to, I'm here, you could talk to me. I've made some good friends in the business. Seriously, like I've made good friends in the business just by being like, hey, if you are an SID and you just want to talk about something, like I'm here. And that's how I've made some of my friends. I don't know. But that's just how I am. Like, I like to be there for people. And if everyone's struggling, like, you can give me a call. And if anyone wants to come help some softball games and they're in the central New York area, we've got a home series next weekend against Virginia Tech. We could use some help. But yeah, just keep your head up. I know even the SIDs who haven't had sports this year, haven't had their student athletes return to play, like that's tough. I struggled for like 6 months trying to come up with content before our student athletes came back to campus. And I couldn't imagine trying to do it for over a year. So we are in our profession, we are smart and innovative people, and just keep thinking, keep trying new things. Don't be afraid to fail at something. Because if you don't fail, there's a good chance that it's gonna be like really successful and impact someone. So keep your head up.
Last question. I know for all of us that we all took on some new projects, some new hobbies over the 13 months that we were all home, or obviously for you live a little less because work, was back to normal, or in some way it was back to normal for you in September. But, any Netflix shows of choice that you're still catching up on right now? Or, what was your favorite, thing to do over quarantine besides spending some time with family?
Well, honestly, my favorite thing to do during quarantine was work out. I had so much fun working out during quarantine because it just I would be bored and I would just get on Zoom and work out with my friends because I couldn't do anything else, or going for walks with my friends. And then the school year hit and I got really busy again and I stopped working out. So I'm really excited for summer because summer body's coming. Okay. But yeah, I just I really enjoyed working out, and I got really into hiking last summer. You can't really be out and around in crowded public places. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to explore central New York. And we have some beautiful places here in central New York. Everyone wants to say Syracuse. Oh, it snows all the time. It doesn't snow all the time. It might be gray and cloudy all the time for 10 months out of the year, but it's not always snowing. And there's some really beautiful places. We have a Green Lake State Park is 15 minutes from where I live. And I think it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I've traveled a lot of cool places. And so I literally during COVID, I would try to go there once or twice a week. I met up with Jenna Jorgensen at Colgate one day, and we walked Green Lakes together because it's kind of between the middle of Syracuse and Hamilton where Colgate is, and things like that. I just tried to keep myself busy, try new things outside. I don't like being, COVID, you were cooped up inside the whole time. So
Yeah.
I was looking to do anything but be cooped up inside. TV shows, I watched a bunch of probably what everyone else watched. I don't think I have any groundbreaking stuff. I did not watch Tiger King when the craze was going on. Still haven't, but I held out on Game of Thrones for years, so I don't anticipate me watching that or Tiger King anytime soon. But I did a rewatch of The Office because that's one of my all-time favorite shows. I did a rewatch of Friends during quarantine, but I watch that every night when it's on TV anyway. And I did a rewatch of Shameless leading up to the most recent season, which I haven't had a chance to watch yet because work is so busy and the school year is still going on. So no spoilers for Shameless for anyone in the comment section because I will watch it. Just waiting to say goodbye to the Gallagher family for good.
Well, Liv, thank you so much for coming on tonight to the Primetime Rundown interview series and joining us for the last hour and a half or so to discuss your career experiences and really let us know what's going on with you in your career and especially currently right now at Syracuse. We really thank you and go Orange.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
No, we were just so happy to have you, but we just asked that you please just stick around for a couple more seconds as we have to pay our bills and let everybody know what's coming up right now on the Eastern Observer this week. Amp up your wrestling fix with the Daily Wrestling News Show with Minutes to Bell Time's Ryan Joy every Monday through Thursday in the morning, starting at 10 a.m. And then tomorrow night, April 20th, the guys are back. Al Carl, Tyler Adele, John Smith, the aforementioned Ryan Joy, John DeConti, and Gary Mehefe for the Essential Wrestling Podcast with coverage beginning at 6 p.m. And then this and every Friday, now starting at our new time, actually, we'll have to change that, of 7 p.m. Joey, Rob, myself will get you updated on what is happening in sports on the Primetime Rundown. That's every Friday, starting now actually at 7 p.m. And all programming can also be seen on the I-95 Sports Network and Zingo Television, Channel 198. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, or on YouTube, you can search I-95 Sports Network and find out that way. All of this powered by the Eastern Observer. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for my special guest, the Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Syracuse University, Olivia Coiro. I'm Ian Schraier. Have a good night, everybody.